I need to give a quick disclaimer right here at the beginning of this episode, because Joy grew up in the Midwest and now lives in Europe. And that might sound kind of familiar for those of you that have been listening to this podcast for any small period of time, really. Now, some of you might be assuming that from the very beginning of this conversation, because of this similarity between Joy and I, that this conversation will dive straight into the obvious subject of healthcare and Europe versus the US. You know, the good, the bad, and the expensive. But that is actually not what this disclaimer is about. In fact, what it's about is the deep love for the complexities of the Midwest that, frankly, really do not get any credit in the bulk of mainstream knowledge, media, or wherever else. I am half joking and also half very, very serious. Long story short, for about the first 8 to 9 minutes, Joy and I go down a rabbit hole of all things Midwest. And if you don't live in the US, if you don't know the region, maybe it's not that interesting. I debated about cutting it, but frankly, it was too entertaining to me, and honestly, it does show a bit of the broader subject on the complexities of a life when it comes to doing something as drastic as moving across an ocean to build a life in another country, as Joy has done, and as many of you have heard me wax poetic about doing one day in the future. All this to say, when it comes to making a living from the things we make, no decision is perfectly black or white, right or wrong, good or bad. There are pros and cons to absolutely everything, from deciding which website platform hosts to use, to deciding which country to live in order to pursue your version of the dream that is making a living from the things we make. The whole point of this podcast has always been to shed a light on those pros and cons and complexities of all the options, the business models, the lifestyles, the geographic locations, and whatever other variables that we have to deal with in life, so that you can make the decision that's best for you, uniquely. Okay, now I need to stop here with that because, as will come to no surprise to those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a few episodes, when you put two Midwestern gals together who have a shared admiration of European culture and pace of life, mixed with a shared passion for making and for clay and for business, well, we clearly had a few things to talk about. So much so that this, my friends, is only part 1 of my conversation with Joy Hanford. And real quick, before we hear ever so briefly from our amazing sponsors, before we get into this big conversation, you should know, as two gals who get fired up about a myriad of subjects, there is adult language in this episode. So grab the headphones or ask the kiddos not to play in the studio for the next hour. Or, let them play in the studio. I don't know, that's your parenting choice, not mine. Anyway, let's get to it right after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great source for students and teachers. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com. This episode is also sponsored by the Archie Bray Clay Business, home of Bray Patch, a ceramic patching material that is best used for filling cracks and bonding breaks. Bray Patch can be applied to either green or bisqueware and fired up to cone 10. It fires paper white, but can be tinted using your chosen clay body and be covered by opaque glaze or slip. Order anytime online at archiebrayclay.com. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 14 years, Rebecca Ikes Kara. Hey, Joy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rebecca.
See, I can't even, I never know how to start this thing. Oh my goodness. You reached out to me online, and this has been fascinating because I feel like it's one of those situations where you actually have secretly always known someone because you just connect immediately. So
Are you trying to be my best friend?
buckle up, everybody. This is going to be exciting.
No pressure.
Before we go down a tangent, because that's going to happen, I think, this time around, how would you introduce yourself to everybody listening?
Hi, everybody. My name is Joy Hanford. I introduce myself as just Joy 98% of the time. Has been always my problem with the name like Joy, because it's not Joyce and it's not other things. It's just Joy. Oh my God. See, yeah, this is difficult because suddenly rambling. Okay. Hi, my name is Joy Hanford. I am an artist and an author and an excellent popcorn popper. And I live in Europe, and I'm from the Midwest of America, and I have way too much time on my hand, but no time ever. And that's how I introduce myself today.
Okay, it's really funny that you just mentioned excellent popcorn popper because, as we were saying before we hit record, the community members know who I'm interviewing and submit questions. And I could not figure out in advance why Jessica was asking what does make an excellent popcorn popper. So let's just kick it off with questions straight from the beginning.
First of all, Jessica, thanks for reading the bio. I appreciate you. Secondly, time, practice, like clay. It's just like clay. Perseverance, tenacity,
Commitment to a craft.
commitment to a important craft. I think I pop popcorn every day. Not gonna lie. I pop in Europe. I live in Portugal where they think that it should be default sweet. What? No. But I mean, there are times when we make it sweet. But I do multiple flavors. I come from a popcorn family. I came from my grandpa's house where if there was a thunderstorm, he would build a fire. I don't care if it was 95 degrees. And we would sit in front of the fire and he would make popcorn and he would tell these really complicated stories that none of us ever fell asleep in because they were amazing. But popcorn, integral. It's the best snack. It's amazing. But if it goes too long, ruined. If it's stale, ruined. Salted too soon, ruined. It's in the bio for a reason. I love popcorn. Absolutely.
I was trying to think of is there a vessel you're making that's meant to be used over on a stovetop to pop popcorn? Like, what is this situation?
In all things. Let's design it. Let's design the popcorn popper. But frankly, it's mostly just a pan and stove and oil.
Yes.
It is essential for popcorn is a flavor delivery system. Okay. And one needs to have the right amount. Jessica, popcorn is a flavor delivery system. Okay. And there needs to be the right amount of oil to stick said flavor to said kernel. I am not one of these air pop, low fat nonsense ladies. God bless. If you are there on a calorie control situation, I'm here for you. I respect you. But not when it comes to popcorn. Okay. I'm here for other things like olives, pickles.
Okay, I have to now ask where in the Midwest you were. Well, you grew up in the Midwest. I was going to say were from, like, I don't know why I stumbled. So it's so weird, depending on who you're talking to, what you say in terms of where you're from.
Midwest is a complicated place.
Well, there's also that.
People think it's complicated. It is. So I say to people, I'm from Pick a State. I'm from Pick a State, Midwest. I have lived in Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. Wisconsin adjacent because of the Illinois factor, but like large swaths of time there. I mean, my college roommate's from Minnetonka, Minnesota, and if you want me to get all Minnesota on you, I can get all mad and just suddenly be from the northern regions. Okay. So it is such a diverse place because we have Missouri to contend with as well. I have not been to Missouri, but I'm here for you, Missouri. So I spent a lot of time in Ohio. I spent a lot of time in Indiana. I spent a lot of time in Illinois. And I spent a lot of time in Kentucky. All at once and always, almost never at the... It's a weird, lovely, amazing place where the apples are always good.
That is...
And you move to Europe and you're like, why aren't the apples good here? They're more for baking. Okay. I mean, flavor profile. Okay. Mealy. Not so nice. So I lived all over. My dad was in automotive manufacturing. And so when the factory opened or the factory closed or he was in inventory. So we just ran around the Midwest my grandparents were from Pennsylvania. Then they moved to the Ohio border of Pennsylvania. I mean, I can do this all day. Like, I love it. I love the Midwest pride.
You've done the eastern time zone of the Midwest, which really is a trip. I apologize to anyone not from the US right now because we've gone down a very niche. Actually, anyone not from the Midwest.
Yeah.
The West Coast Californians listening right now are like, what the hell are we talking about?
So I've spent time in California, I've spent time in Seattle, I've spent time in Florida, I've spent time in North Carolina.
You're not that old. Side note.
You're nice. Did you Google it? Like, are you sure? I moisturize. I have a fountain in my backyard.
The water in Portugal must be better.
It's happiness. Happiness just brings a lovely countenance to the face, to quote a Mitford sister. But let's move on. Also a nerd.
This is why we connected so quickly. This makes sense. This makes sense now. I'm going to right turn us out of the depth that the Midwest does not get its credit for. Although we should maybe start a separate podcast.
Oh my gosh. For everyone, just quickly jump in. For anyone not from the United States of America, not the Canada and Mexico portion of North America, I would like to say very quickly, the Midwest is a very strange zone because I just don't think people thought that you just kept going, but you did. So it is to the right of the Mississippi, but it is to the left of where the Pilgrims stayed. And so it was big frontier, and there's this entire gorgeous thing called Appalachia. So it kind of like sticks you by these two regions. And then the north is a bunch of lakes, which are amazing and as big as seas, because you cannot see the other side. There are waves. It's crazy. And then the bottom tends to be this long, long river called the Ohio River. There's a tendency. Technically, Kentucky it's not the Midwest. Tennessee is not the Midwest. But it's so close. I mean, frontier.
But also, you just said to the right or to the east of the Mississippi.
Oh my God, see, I'm wrong.
Because I'm like, to me, Iowa, because where I grew up, and, you know, you guys, I'll put in the show notes how far you need to, like, jump ahead if you don't want to go here.
My dad went to Luther College in Iowa. I didn't even, but this is it. Midwesterners get so regional that we don't even think outside of our belly buttons.
Because you've thought up of a lot of places where, for me, this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be a very hot take. But, you know, Ohio's on the east different time zone. It's a different time zone. So for me, that's the east. And Iowa, like things west of the Mississippi, for me, is still the Midwest.
What in the Johnny Appleseed is going on here? Nobody knows but us. We could sing the song if we wanted to, but we're not gonna.
My mom appreciates this portion of the podcast so much.
Oh, hi, Mama. I'm not singing. I wanna. Or we're not singing. No.
Oh my God, I love it.
What in the Lutheran summer camp?
That's accurate. That is accurate.
Stop right now.
It is, though. It's underrated because people think it's boring. And I think the Great Plains are very beautiful. Like, people think driving down I-80 is, you know, will you fall asleep? Maybe. But, like, the sunsets and the wheel, yeah, hopefully not. It's big open sky. It's big open sky.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's the thing about such a continent, such a, like, swath of land. It's so diverse. I have so many American friends that I'll say something and they're like, what? And I go, I'm sorry, who? And they'll say, I mean, I have friends from California, I have friends from, because, you know, obviously when you move to another country, anyone from the country that's so big, like I'm from a country the size of Indiana, stretched like taffy and stuck on Spain, has nothing to do with Spain. But that's like, to give you a size proportion for people in the United States of America to kind of draft on. But America's so big. It's so different. And so when you're like, what, you forgot about Iowa? I did. And I'm an asshole. We can't think of everything. I've been gone for so long and I've got to be really small. And I feel it. And be kind in the edit to me because people are going to email me. It's 10:30. It's 11 o'clock at night and Mama's been drinking. Find it just an excuse to please don't hurt me in the internet. I'm sensitive.
Well, with that, I'm gonna keep us on course.
I'm terrified of the Midwest now.
You're fine. We'll only air this in certain states. Can I do that? I don't know that I can do that.
No, we're rude. It's okay. I have thick skin. I make pots.
It's okay. Nobody knows where Portugal is in the U.S. They can't come get you. I said that because I'm terrible at geography, for the record. And many people think Portugal is in South America, but it's actually next to Spain. So, just to clarify things.
And it ran the world for a minute, but we don't like to talk about colonialism.
This is the show where I get canceled, I think.
It's official. So, okay, again. Hi, my name is Joy Hanford. I am originally from the Midwest of America. I moved to Portugal almost 15 years ago, and I make pots.
That was my next question, was how long ago you had actually moved. Were you making pots before you moved, or has that been since Portugal?
I'm making pots for 25 years.
All right.
You're like, she's young. And then she says, I've been making pots for 25
since
years.
You were born. Okay.
You're so nice, Rebecca. We're going to keep Rebecca. Joy's canceled. Rebecca can stay, but she'll make you popcorn, so it'll be fine. I started making pots in 1999, and I'm still doing it. Yay. I do a lot of things, but I make a lot of pots. Now, I've had periods where I wasn't able to make a lot of pots, but I didn't stop thinking about pots. And I didn't stop thinking about design, and I didn't stop thinking about utility with art. I didn't stop thinking about all of my teachers and all of my training, and God bless the internet, like burgeoning YouTube. I was like 2005, like, let's go ahead. See what kind of pots are on that YouTube thing. What is this YouTube?
Is this going to stick around?
Yeah, this like magical thing where people like throw up a demo and it's still there 17 years later. And you're like, that's not 17 years ago. Who are you?
I said earlier today, somebody was like, yeah, I think like 3 years ago or so in 2019. And I was like, oh, honey, I hate to tell you, that was 5 years ago, not 3.
There's a bit of a time loop now.
What is time?
We're going to be time? Okay. It's a construct we invented to make ourselves feel safe in the flaming ball of chaos that which is this world. Thank you for coming.
There's the quote. And done.
Shall we make some more popcorn with Joy and Rebecca?
I do think we need a separate podcast. Walk us back a little bit how you got into clay. And then the second part of that question is, what was the impetus for the move to Portugal?
Oh, this is so fun. Okay. Oh, I like this leap.
You can take as much of that chunk of time as you want.
No, I'm very good at this. I promise. I was a baker, so I was never good at school. Very easy to start with that. I was never good at school, but I was very good at my job. Where I was really lucky. I started working at a bakery when I was like 14, kept that baking going, then became a baker, like a professional baker, artisan bread baker. So I had a full career. I only had to work a few days.
Like culinary school, the white jacket situation. What were we doing?
Apprenticing in like hard school all night long, baking. Like, I can't make you a croissant, but do you need your sourdough to be crusty? Do you need a poolish? I'm your girl. So, and I still bake bread all the time. So I started as a baker to avoid academics. And then I paid my bills and I just needed something to do for fun. I ran away to college rather than getting married young, thank God for me. So college, yeah, I'll just do that. And being super dyslexic and not academic whatsoever. So I'll be an undeclared major and what's pottery? I'll try that, was basically what happened. And sat down and it was so it's not like baking, but it was like, I was always very not art. I was creative. I was always drawing. I got yelled at for filling my notebooks with doodles rather than homework, but I just didn't classify it as art for way too long, like even way beyond when I was making more money at ceramics than I was at my job. But I really leaned into clay because it felt so comfortable and so physical and so artisan and so worker and so noble. And I mean that. I find it very noble what we do, what the people who are listening to this do. We turn mud into stone, and it's the oldest industrial product, and it's the oldest form of art. When we stopped following animals, we planted some seeds, and we sat down by a river to wait for those seeds to grow, and we made a fire. And we tended that fire for a long period of time. We hadn't done that before. And when we grew some animals and our crops grew and died and we decided to move on, we moved the fire, and that ground was stone, and we're not dumb. And so we told stories and we made culture, and we actually made things that would break. and we make clay, and we still do it the same way. We still make pots in the same way. And there's something like legacy and noble and linking, and it's just the arc of humanity in what we do. And we can, we can pop popcorn in it. It gets us to the moon. It is literally what takes us through our atmosphere. Like, it takes us up to the sky, to the stars. And so I love clay. I've always loved clay. So I immediately was failing out of college immediately, but getting A's in ceramics and getting A's in art. And I very quickly found arts residencies. So I had a job. I worked really hard, but it wasn't a well-paying job. I think bread baking is also incredibly noble, but I'm not going to get so erudite about it. So I'm just going to say
ceramics has a later alarm clock than bread baking, I feel like. So just,
Like, it's the same ovens. It's just like 500 degrees different, just a little bit hotter, just a little tiny bit warmer.
If a ceramicist wants to roll into the studio at 10 a.m., you can still make a living, as opposed to, I feel like, bread baking. You're like, well, 4 a.m., that's the rest of my life. Okay.
I haven't slept ever in my whole life. And then I also had kids, and that was just a complete train wreck. I mean, I love them, but I mean, for sleeping. This is comedic timing. The pauses, if you're listening, are intentional. So I'm trying to get you to giggle so that I don't feel that I called my children. Okay, so I was really lucky. I had a baking partner whose parents were like a carpenter and a weaver. And I was living in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a big hub for clay. There was a great ceramics guild, an amazing ceramics galleries, cooperative galleries. And then my baking partner, Sarah Beth Noggle, who's an amazing printmaker, she brought in a Penland School of Crafts catalog. I mean, pre-internet, we're talking like flip kind of catalog. And I applied for their summer programs. So work study, but you had to apply, you had to, we're talking letters of recommendation. Do they still do that?
I think, unfortunately.
Okay. I've been gone a long time. I mean, in general, do people in general, don't you just like give your DNA and your Instagram account and you get in?
Letters of recommendation, I feel like, are more reasonable. What I still kind of roll my eyes at is the cover letter. Like, really? Let's just...
I'm a writer. I can give you a cover letter. Rebecca, call me. I'll get you a cover.
Hopefully I'll never need to write one. Something has gone very poorly if I'm in need of writing a cover letter.
True. So I started going to Penland in 2001, at least one session per summer. And just kind of it occasionally happens at Penland. You have like a regular that just shows up for one session. And so I was really, really lucky that I just, like, straight out of the gate, I got the Empty Bowls Project, social justice project at Penland. And I'm 21 and I'm hanging out with everyone, like the names. John Britt was the director of the clay studio back then, and nicest man. Everyone was just open and nice and honest and kind. And then I tried to go into academic pottery with love and respect. Totally different environment. Trial by fire, very rough, very like military level. So I went to Indiana University, which I was really lucky. That's where I lived. So I left the bakery and I got a job as an academic administrator. That's fancy for secretary. And they were so kind because I was dyslexic. So I found the one Freaks Misfits secretary office that were completely fine with me going. So when I filed something, they'd have to go like 5 up or 5 back because dyslexia. And they were kind and they were wonderful. And I still to this day like adore all of them. And when I was there, I just was right place, right time. And I was able to be the resident potter at 23 for a community pottery studio that was connected to the Indiana University Student Union. It no longer exists, which sucks. It was turned into a computer lab, when we had those. So like equally insulting. Like, we're going to close this and make it a computer lab. And we don't even have those anymore, do we? It's like cover letters or letters of recommendation. Like, what? I always wanted to work in this pottery studio, but I didn't have enough money. Basically, everything in my ceramics career is I didn't have enough money. So I made myself indispensable in some way to keep going until 2020. So spoiler, it's going to be a long backstory. So I started clay in 1999 and I was making clay as much as I could. I was constantly like that pissant walking into someone's pottery studio. Like, oh my God, I love clay. Like in the way that some people are, in the way they're like, I made this. I was 100% that human. That's how you get there. That's how you get it done. And a lot of people humored me and nobody would apprentice me. And I was like, but how? But sometimes people would be like, I have this piece of equipment. I don't need it. You take it. Or, it just made myself there. I went to every opening, every Ceramicist Guild sale, everything. I applied to everything. I applied to nothing. I've never applied to a job I was qualified for. And I've gotten a lot of jobs. I don't know. It's the popcorn element.
Wait, did you bring popcorn at your interviews? You brought popcorn with to the
They're
interview.
back.
That's the... Okay.
The only reason I don't have popcorn is it is 11:15 at night. My family's sleeping and it's loud to make. And they would be like, no, Mom, I have a test tomorrow. But in Portuguese. So anyway, I was really amazingly lucky that I got this the resident potter of Union Studios at Indiana University Student Union. It was behind a bowling alley, and occasionally like a rogue bowling ball would like hit the wall and it would be terrifying. But we didn't die. But I'm very good in like a bomb situation, like a war loud fireworks. I'm your girl because trial by fire. But we also had a photography darkroom. We had a photography lab. We had we did live drawing. We did nude drawing. We did all of which I ran, all of which I organized, and none of which I got paid for. So it was a 100% volunteer position. I was given free clay, free glaze, free kiln. I did all the ordering. I did all of the maintenance. I did exactly what a 23-year-old would do if somebody said to you, you can have it. So I would go before work. I would have like an entire wardrobe of like business casual, Goodwill gorgeousness, and then I'd have like at the same pottery studio, I'd have like all of my clay clothes. So I would take the bus into where the campus was because I couldn't afford to live on campus or around campus because students. So I would like bus in. And I would throw, let's be honest, I would clean the pot. Because what is clay? What is pottery? What is ceramics? Physics. If you are on the wheel, physics, chemistry, and cleaning. Tell everyone. Because I don't think they know, Rebecca. If someone had told me, I might have done something else. Probably not. But I don't think people are telling people that it's physics, chemistry, and cleaning. It's hard. It's so hard. So it was mostly like cleaning, getting the studio ready. I mean, we had like 20 wheels. It was this huge community pottery studio. It was really special. But then I made the mistake of thinking that I could, because I had an academic job, so I could take one class a semester, which is wonderful. And I would just take clay classes. I wasn't enrolled in college. I could just sign up. I would get in. I would take these clay classes. And I thought it would be a really good idea to kind of like tell people that I was a potter. Not a good idea in academia. They were like, I'm sorry, how old are you? And I was like, I'm a dick. That's how old I am. I'm an asshole. I'm 23 and I have all of this responsibility and I have enough manganese to kill a small horse and I can do whatever I want because these other people just thought that I was qualified enough to do all of these amazing things. And because I have the energy of a under 25-year-old with absolutely nothing but I better pay my rent so I don't get evicted. Yeah, it was amazing. It was so great. It was wonderful. I taught classes. The only thing I got paid for was to teach, but okay. So I worked from, like an hour and a half in the morning, then from 9 to 5, but my lunch hour, I would then go back to I had these old, the old kilns that were the trip switches and you had to ramp them manually. Killing it with like nothing. Cone 6 all the way. Let's make that rutile drap. Let's do it. Let's make it gorgeous. It was so good. And the glazes are now back. And I'm like, yes, people, let's layer that. Let's get that layered. Let's make that cosmic swirl. Is that a flow blue? Yes, let's do it. So it was big in the 90s and 2000s. And I'm so happy to see you. Minimalistic pottery. Who's that? We're back. And I very minimalistic pottery now. So I'm making fun of myself, please. Oh my God, so canceled. So anyway, I tried to do this academic pottery thing, and they were like, who's, write an artist statement. I'm like, I make pottery. Like, I just was such an asshole. So I dropped out of college, and that was a great idea. And I kept working. I kept going to Penland. I really loved that atmosphere, that respect, that like, we're here for 2 weeks. No one's sleeping. Let's fire every kiln on the kiln pad. Also, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning carving that swan out of a watermelon swan for you to have your candle open. But you don't know that. I'll meet you at the kiln pad at 2 o'clock in the morning because I did work studies. So I had to work 20 hours a week. I still had to pay for my classes. It was merit-based scholarship. So I had to apply, get accepted, and win, still pay. But I didn't have to pay the price of the prestige of I'm going to an artist residency and I'm an adult and I can afford it. I am going to an artist residency and I'm going to cut your fruit.
I have a question. I've never been to Penland. I've never taken a class.
Great.
But I can't tell from your description if there's actually a watermelon swan or if that was a joke.
How dare you?
We're going to need to link this. We're going to need to link this in the show notes.
I'm not saying it was a cruise. All right. I'm not saying it was a Disney cruise.
But you did carve a watermelon, though. Literally.
I mean, I made some pretty cute fruit trays, babes. Like, I mean, if I'm going to be awake at 4 o'clock in the morning with a paring knife and a dream, I am going to make it nice. I did a lot. But one of the beautiful things about being in the Penland kitchens, not just hanging out with all the core students and all of us just chucking in and having a great time and being really blessed by everybody working really hard for the same goal, which is creating a lovely meal and having a lovely life and just being really grateful and appreciative. And also like then going swimming in the lake, in the river in the break, and, then going and throwing pots and watching demos with Michael Klein and Nick Jerling and Cynthia Bringle and et al., like hanging out with Paulus Berenson. Being Paulus Berenson's pen pal was just a highlight of my existence. The man can write a letter. And, just really having just a really special time. But what I got to do was wash all the dishes. In Penland, they used handmade pots. So I got to be like, God, I like this handle. Why do I like this handle? And I got to make the handle. And I remember like specifically, like my 4th summer at Penland, I was, who makes these pictures? Oh, they're like, oh, I don't know. I turned over. Who's M. Smith? Who's Max Smith? Oh, Mackenzie Smith. So I ran over to Airmont when I could and took a workshop with Mackenzie Smith. Like just getting to use the things, layering the pots. And what I always tried to do when I was at Penland was, because I was working so much with all the pottery, when I saw something that wasn't there that could make the plating better, I would make it and then donate it because I couldn't take anything home with me. Like half the time I was like on a wing and a prayer to get to North Carolina. I didn't own a car. I had to beg favors. I had to ask friends. And this is like pre-internet. So it's not like I could go like, who is going? Could we ride share? It was like, who will come with, who would like to form an alliance? I will pay your gas and buy you every grilled cheese from here to Asheville. And then we got to get to Spruce Pine. And then I don't know if your car can make it up the mountain, but I sure can find someone that can get us up there. It's going to be okay. That was really special. It was just that utilitarianness of testing the work and working on the clay and doing all of that. And hashtag, I make Michelin star plates now. I work exclusively with chefs in a capacity where they're like, I need exactly this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I've trained for this. The marathon of life.
I love that I need to like pause you for a second because I love that you just dropped that in. Like, oh, and BT Dubs jumping to the end, I make plates for Michelin star chefs. No big deal.
What I always wanted. I always wanted that, like from the beginning. From I'm making pots when I can. I don't even think I know how to center. Who knew how to center in the beginning? Let's be honest. It doesn't really explain it in books. I was like, I want to be that person that makes that really chefy shit. Hashtag chefy shit. I want to make plates for that, like, what's it called? That amuse-bouche? That last bite, first bite?
You've been out of the Midwest too long. You still said it mostly correct. Like you know.
Oh, I can do it in Portuguese too. Olha, você, eu não sei especificamente o percebe. Mas esses esses chefes de restaurantes, eles especificamente querem alguma merda, mas a merda especificamente para coisa. Anyone who speaks Portuguese is like, Rebecca, you shouldn't answer yes to all your emails.
That is how this happened. This is how this happened. But I need to just, I'm going to be apologizing for myself a lot because you're bringing out another side of me. And I made a joke about Midwesterners not pronouncing amuse-bouche correctly. But that mostly comes from the fact that I grew up where John Deere tractors began, claim to fame,
Yes.
which has...
How many times have you been to Henry Ford Museum? You know.
I mean,
How many
that's a little
school
far away
trips?
from... That's a little far... Oh, never. No,
Really?
where John Deere tractors began is the Quad Cities, which is at East Moline, Illinois, which is very far away from Detroit.
I mean, we went from Indiana up there.
Oh, yeah.
South Bend, Indiana, all the way. Okay, anyway, back to what you were going to say. I'm so sorry.
Anyway, the point being that I'm going to pronounce the art fair that my mom took me to as a kid the way that the Quad Cities, the Quad Cityans would want it pronounced, because it's a different show if we pronounce it differently. And that is the Beaux-Arts. There's the Beaux-Arts show.
Okay. I mean, honey, can I say, I ain't never said nothing right ever. Okay? Ever. And then I moved to Europe. Do you know what we got old in America? Dirt. That's what we got old. Like, I'll be walking around this place, not using this accent. I do affect quite a mid-Atlantic accent. I channel my very fancy Kutzer pianist, Presbyterian choir director grandmother, and I'm like, how lovely is it to meet you? Okay. And then sometimes I get real mad, and I'm like, no, I did what? And people are like, who are you? I'm like, this is me. Y'all aren't ready. So way too much time in Southern Indiana, way too much time in North Carolina, way too much time in Kentucky. It just, I can't pronounce anything right, but I had to learn how to say Karviyeyush. That took 3 years.
When I can pronounce the GN sound of those two letters together in Italian, we'll be good.
Bologna.
Nya.
We have it in
See,
Portuguese.
we're still not.
LH. Yeah. Karviyeyush. Oh, it's awful.
Okay, hold on.
Anyway,
We're coming back. We're coming back.
Railer in.
So you did work study at Penland, which I actually want to re-say this because I think it's brilliant in that when you're working in the kitchen, like the point you just meant, everything you're eating off of is something someone has made and someone highly accomplished has made. And so then you're saying, oh, I like holding this. Why do I like this? Why, like most people would think of a job of washing dishes to not be formative to...
Not a Penland School of Crafts.
So bring us back to the timeline. Like the years that you were going back and forth to Penland is
2001, 2006. The last time I went to Penland was 2006 summer. So I would say sometimes they'd be like, can you stay an extra session? I'd be like, yep. And I'd be like, I think I quit my job. But what are you going to do? That was the early years. That was when I was still a baker. And I was like, I mean, if the job's there when I get back, and love you. But I mean, I'm not leaving the mountain. How dare you? Like it's like Never Neverland. And back then there were like llamas on the knoll. It was a completely different place. Like I see pictures now and I'm like, what the heck is that? We had to like sign a waiver. Like if you open a vein, you're not going to sue somebody. It was a whole different planet, but it was so special. You're sitting on the Lily Loom house porch and you're rocking. And I mean, my grandmother was from West Middlesex, Pennsylvania, but they used to drive to Berea, Kentucky for the craft. It's just something that's in a lot of people in the United States. And I know it's regional, but I'm sure people are feeling like, yeah, I remember going to that craft fair. Yeah, I remember going to that craft fair. And my grandma was a pianist. She was really fancy and she was very elegant. And she wore red lipstick every day of her life. She was born in 1914. And I wore chapstick every day of my life. And she just really wanted me to put a barrette in my hair. And I was punk rock. And so there were kind of barrettes, but mostly not.
More studded.
Yeah, girl. And so, I mean, I remember sitting with her. We went down to the Berea Fair and we were sitting on the porch and rocking in the rocking chairs and at Boone Tavern, Daniel Boone. I have a cousin who his name Boone, and I love him, my little baby cousin. And she was just rocking in that chair, and she was like, you know what? I remember rocking in this chair, and my grandma was rocking with me, next to me, the way I'm rocking with you. And my grandmother was born in 1914. So y'all just do that mental math. So craft is legacy. Craft is important. Craft is what you leave behind. It's what you had before. It's nostalgia personified. It is something that we all know, feel, and have a kinship with because we all built that fire and we all tended those animals and we all planted that wheat and waited for popcorn. We planted that popcorn and we waited for that popcorn to grow. And then someone spilled it in the fire. And then my whole life's mission did come forth to fruition. Okay, that rhymed. We're going to keep it.
Well done.
Okay,
Well done.
Look at that. But that's really important to me. And Penland is Penland is very much like that. It is a legacy project. Like people leave legacy donations to Penland. A lot of people that I went to Penland with have unfortunately passed on. And when I go through, and because I look for my students and I look for people I know back in the States, I'm always looking for an opportunity for my community, my clay community, just like you have your community. I have a community. And there are names that I know. People I know that I've worked with in Upper Clay, 3 wheels down from me. I always sat at the same wheel every time. I'll get there early. It's mine. It's only mine for a week and a half to 2 weeks out of every year, sometimes 4 if I didn't have much to do and didn't care about having my job when I came home. Hopefully someone would take care of my dog. But it's legacy. It's so important. And so many people, you just get to, there's not many opportunities in this life where you get to leave your life for a minute. You get to give yourself that. And that's what artist residencies do. Whether you have the means to pay or whether you have the merit to be there. And there's something really beautiful and special about that. But if you're only in an academic situation, if you're only in a community pottery situation, you can't imagine what it's like to just show up and everyone is your level of nerd. And it doesn't have to be about pottery. Like I loved going into the glass studio and hanging out with the glass blowers. I loved going in the wood studio. I loved anytime I went near the Lily Loom house and the fiber artists, and they were like, please don't come near us. You're dirty. Yes, I won't, but that's real pretty,
Just wave from afar. It looks
like,
nice.
I'm sorry, everything I have can contaminate. Like, I am contamination. It's me, but Penland gave me the first place I was able to very comfortably say, I'm an artist, but I still was in my 30s before I was like, hold the fuck up. I had to win that spot. I just, imposter syndrome, never processed that in my brain. I was like, oh, I was just the first one. I got first in line. No, I didn't. I got to win that spot. I applied. I wrote the great letter. I had the great letter of recommendation because this was before you sent images. You didn't send images. It was just like, I want to be there. Why? Because thesis statement, nothing spelled right. You're welcome. And then I would be like, and I will make you a swan out of a watermelon. Mostly I'll just stack all this pottery in like really pretty positions and then I'll give height to the grapes and it'll be great. And in 18 seconds, decimated every day. Decimated. Like locusts. But the coffee was always hot. And beautiful cup.
So I'm going to make you jump forward because
Please.
With how passionately you talk about legacy, I think people will be surprised because I think sometimes the assumption, or at least the assumption I would have made, is when we think passionately about legacy or where we're from, then you kind of stay there because you want to be a part of that. And this whole conversation got started because you wrote to me and said, hey, I'm from the Midwest too, and now I live in Portugal.
And you always talk about healthcare. Who wants to talk about healthcare? I can talk about healthcare. That was what got me. Don't let her fool you. She really just wanted to talk to me about healthcare. Because she loves healthcare. And we love America and nobody's saying nothing wrong. Listen to my sweet, sweet soul that misses like a burning hot passion, misses so much a good old root beer and a nice chat on a Sunday. God, there's no root beer in Europe.
Maybe some cheese curds? So you're saying I should mail you
I've only been to the dunes once and I made the mistake of singing karaoke and asking a woman what a cheese curd was and she's still mad at me. But
we can solve that.
I'm going to be okay. I still feel bad though.
I'm like, the things that I'm thinking, sweet corn.
Sweet corn. Yeah, Europe does not know.
I watched my, whatever age he was at the time, I don't remember. Let's just go with 30-year-old husband eat sweet corn on the cob for the first time, which, okay, an aside here. If nobody guessed, this is what was going to happen for most of this conversation. As a child growing up eating sweet corn or corn on the cob, whichever way we want to go, I don't discriminate. You get to go through that awkward stage of learning how to eat corn on the cob. And if nobody knows what we're talking about, I'm sure Google can lead you there. It can be messy. It can be complicated. There is a technique that you need to acquire, which those of us that grow up in the Midwest acquire by, I don't know, 5, 6, especially if you need to get your teeth out. Easy. So when someone at 30 has to eat it for the first time ever.
And was he European about it? He's like, it's messy. I'm messy. Was he like, it's messy? That would be my husband, who's Portuguese, which is different. It's a different, but he'd be like, why are we messy? Why are we touching it with our hands?
I was like, no, you put these little sticks in the end and then you can hold it.
And then they're like, no. Why is there a tool to eat this food? Well, so is a fork.
And this does not help anyone listening at all, but you're going to appreciate that I still have the childhood cob holders, sticks in the ends, which are Mickey Mouse. Obviously.
Yeah. I brought some here because I was naive enough to think. Like, I didn't bring nothing. I moved to Portugal in 2010 full-time. Here we go. Sound bites. I moved to Portugal in 2005 part-time. So I would come as much as I could, 1 month, 2 months a year, knowing I was going to move full-time. But like getting my feet in the water, doing the things I need to do, setting up bank accounts, doing all the things, because I do love the person I fell in love with. But life is life. And so I better know. The first thing I ever learned how to say in Portuguese is, eu sou alérgica da laranja. I'm allergic to orange, because I am. That's important. It's in a lot of stuff. And the second thing I learned to say in Portuguese is, o meu namorado largou-me. Onde fica a embaixada americana, por favor? Like, my boyfriend has broken up with me. Where is the American embassy? Okay? That's just me. That's who I am.
But you did marry your boyfriend at the time, just to be clear.
For a visa. I love him. But the marriage... Like, everybody was always joking because he's real handsome. I mean, I ain't nothing not to look at. Hello. You can't see me. I'm very attractive. But I am unconventionally, charmingly attractive. And my husband, he looks like a movie star. He's very handsome and sweet and quiet. And y'all are like, what? And I'm like, it's fun. We have a great time. Yes, I'm just telling you. So he's wonderful and amazing, and I absolutely adore him. What was I talking about? I got distracted by how attractive he is. Holy shit.
When and why you moved to Portugal. And also I'm fascinated by the in-between. But that we can have like
I know, I got so attracted by my attractive husband, which I don't know what I was talking about. But
we can talk about the pragmatic stuff off air for I'm like, wait, hold on. Let's go through the logistics here because I need to know these things.
So I met him in 2003 at a bad party. It was terrible. In the United States of America. I was working at my secretary job where I couldn't file a file, but they liked me. And my high school best friend, Luba Bobova, from Russia. Like, she's amazing. She's from Moscow. She came over in the 90s to America. So, i.e., this will make sense in a second. She called me and she was like, I need you to come with me to my first year grad student party for psychology. I've been to this party. I wasn't going to that party. No, it's boring, full of pretentious people who think they're smarter than me because they can spell pretentious. No, I'm not going. So I hung up on her, and she calls me back, and she's like, I don't think you heard me. You're coming with me into my first year of grads. I mean, we've been friends since we were 12. She could say hello when I met her. And then now she was bossing me around to go to a party. And I was like, absolutely not. So I hung up on her again. She called me back. She's like, no, you have to come because I've met your person. And I hung up. And she called me back again. And I was like, School of Continuing Studies. This is Joy. How can I help you? And she was like, I will be at your apartment at 9 p.m. because it's America, not Europe. And you better not be in your pajamas. So I was in my pajamas. But you don't mess with her. She was like, get dressed. And I did. And we went to this party. It was awful. Formica, bad lighting, pretentious people. There was a man drinking absinthe. And just to let you know how long ago this was, I was like, where did you get that? Isn't that illegal? Also, you should have like a slotted spoon and a slow drip situation with a sugar cube. Why are you drinking? You're going to die. You're going to go blind. And he was like, I bought it from the Czech Republic. I was like, oh, you were in the Czech Republic? And he was like, no, I bought it on the internet. And I said, you can buy things on the internet? That's what I said. And then my best friend taps me on the shoulder. Is like, that's him. And the Formica pretension parted like the Red Sea. And there was a bit of a like flickery fluorescent light moment with the sound. And there he was. The buzz, 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 right? And there he was, my very handsome movie star level, cutie, cute boyfriend. And I walked up to him and I was like, hi, you're attractive. I didn't say it, but I thought it. And I was like, hi, I'm really charming. I am. And he was like, that's cute. Who are you? And I said, hi, my name is Joy and I do pottery. I didn't say that, but I said, hi, I'm Joy. And he's like, I'm Alfredo. And I was like, that's cute. Where are you from? And he said, I'm from Portugal. And I said, as in next to Spain, as in Caldas de Rainha pottery, as in Bordel Pinheiro, as in, and I just started going, pottery. And he was like, what? How do you? Huh? I was like, it's famous. Portuguese pottery is famous. And I still talk about that every day because no one in Portugal thinks that Portuguese pottery is famous. It's exhausting. I have never met more humble people in my life. And I don't make a lot of blanket statements except that whole thing about legacy and humanity and the fire and the you're welcome. Thanks for coming to my art history lecture. But I mean, I can't convince the greatest potters in the world that they're the greatest potters in the world. It's not something I can do. And I did go to college and I did do all of these artist residencies. And I am constantly impressed and awed and floored by the talent and the amazing work that they do. My colleagues in factories, my colleagues who are art in the ceramics arts, my colleagues who are sculptors, my colleagues who paint tiles. My God, the things that people do, not with underglazes, with stains on fluid glazes. Like I literally will walk into like a place and just start crying. And people are like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, well, my emotions are falling out of my face because you know what that is. It's so hard. And they're like, oh, well, my grandpa made it. And I'm like, yay. What's his name? I'm going to write it down because legacy. And I mean it. Like I do go home and Dear Diary. I've met the grandson of, but it's okay. I'm okay with being an incredibly weird nerd because that's been my entire personality forever.
Well, and actually it's a conversation I was having with somebody else recently who I was talking to about this. I'm not going to remember who it was, but it's like there's so many people now because of the internet, because of social media that have become these household names that people look to as master potters. Some of them are, some of them are not.
Some of them quit because they started in the pandemic and then they're like, oh my God, I really want to like take a dance class and travel.
The point being, there are so many master craftspeople who are part of this tradition, who have been around for so long in a space where their grandfather was making that and now they know that gets no credit on the interwebs streets. They're just still showing up each day, doing their thing and doing it impeccably that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, I'm sure half those places you just listed off in Portugal, people are like, wait, what? I can't. How do I spell that? I've never heard of it.
It's same. I don't know how to spell it either. I can't. It's just my own personal level of neurospicy. I am beyond fortunate that I had the privilege to immigrate to Portugal. I am not an expat. I do not split my time between two countries. I do not split my income between two countries, although you have to pay American taxes until you die.
These were one of my questions.
So much money to give back your citizenship. And also, like, multiple passports is a really good idea. Like, you never know when you have to flee. What was that Ali Sheedy quote from the Breakfast Club? You never know when you have to bail. So just, a little Ali Sheedy moment. But I live in a constant state of privilege. I fell in love with the right person. He happened to live in a place that I was weirdly fascinated with. We happened to have a really amazing relationship, a partnership of over like 20 years because I'm old. And it's always been work, but it's always worked out. And we got to move to a place that is really rich in something that I'm super passionate about. But I, had to move and I had to learn a language in order to be taken seriously. And there's a thing called the patriarchy, and it's really real. And I'm not even going to lie about how hard it is being a woman and trying to talk to people and have them take you seriously when there's a lot of cultural stuff about talking to a woman when you don't want to offend her husband. That's a logistical nightmare that only I have to deal with. Specifically, I am just constantly in awe and honored to live in a country of such hardworking people with quality in mind constantly, who work tirelessly for some of the lowest salaries in Europe with the highest energy costs and not a lot of prospects economically. It is not inexpensive to live in Portugal, despite what people think when they come on vacation if they have a different salary. I bristle anytime someone says that healthcare is free when I pay taxes. And if you want to know how much, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'll tell you exactly how much I pay in taxes. But my taxes, to keep this anecdotal, afford me a lot. They afford me healthcare. They afford my children an education through university. It's not free. I've paid for it. And everyone else has paid for it. I have social structures and systems. I have a non-two-party political system, which is kind of great. I mean, there's some scary stuff about politics everywhere, all over the world, and we're not going to talk about politics, but I don't have one of two options. I have a lot of options. I have a lot of local options. I have a lot of local elections. I have a lot of local people in government. But the bureaucracy is quite baffling, and taxation is quite baffling. And all of the things of there's no incentive to open a business in Portugal. Like, besides, I cannot eat shit for anyone but myself. I only find my own shit delicious. That's a t-shirt. But it's true. Like, there's absolutely no incentive to open a business in Portugal. There's no incentive to work so hard for so little when you think of it globally. So I can't think about things globally. I have to think about community. I have to think about me and my community.
So you opened your studio in 2020, but when did you move?
So I moved to Portugal full-time in 2010. October 2010, 6 suitcases, $300, and a baby, 3-year-old. I do not recommend one of those. I won't let you know which one I don't recommend, because that's
so you were saying before that you were going back and forth to deal with the logistics and the paperwork. Were both of you going back and forth?
Started coming to Portugal in 2005. I came part-time. My husband is Portuguese, so it was really easy. I married him in 2009 for a visa. I also love him, but it was for a visa. I got hives. I threw up. But there was paperwork to file. And so I couldn't be Joni Mitchell about the thing. I had to get married because the jig was up. We had a baby. I lost all of my visa points. I couldn't do it on my own as a single mother there are bakers here. They didn't need a baker. And there are people who can misfile files in a language that I did not yet speak. So they didn't need me to work as a secretary. And they didn't need me in pottery in Portugal. They don't need me now. They tolerate me at best. And I appreciate them every time for tolerating me. So I moved full-time in 2010. It took about 2 years to talk to people. Sincerely, like, it took a lot of study. And I was living outside of Lisbon. My husband worked outside of Lisbon, but on the other side of the outside of Lisbon. He worked closer to Lisbon. He's a scientist, so he was at a university. And so he was gone 12 hours a day. And so we could only afford one train ticket. So I couldn't just commute. There was also, contrary to the way the digital nomad situation is now, you couldn't get a job if you didn't speak Portuguese. You could not get, and it was also the worst world economic crisis. Hi, let's see what Joy did right here. I kept breathing. I kept going. I didn't stop. But I immigrated to a foreign country with a child, a toddler, 6 suitcases, $300, no language besides, please, can I know where the embassy is? because I'm breaking up. And also, please don't give me orange because it's a terrible allergic reaction. I won't die. And in the worst world economic crisis that had been seen in our lifetime, it was awful. Like you couldn't get a loan. You couldn't take enough money out of the bank. I didn't have any money in the bank, so it wasn't really scary at the time. But when I landed, I immediately lost 20 euros. I mean, I got off the plane and 20 euros fell out of my pocket. And so now I only have 280. We'll just do dollars to euros really fast. Like it's the same. And I was, I mean, it happened so fast that I like slow motion, like knew it had happened and somebody picked it up. And so I cried. And in English, I didn't have Portuguese. I said, por favor, but like in English, I was like, please, I don't have any more money. Please just put it somewhere. Put it on the counter. Please don't keep it. But they did. And that was fine. So right after that, I was going to, I had 10 hours in the country. I was going to lunch at my mother-in-law's house, which I'm really lucky. I have really amazing in-laws. But it was a Sunday and I was like, oh, everything's going to close in like 15 minutes. And so we passed a man selling produce. He's a local farmer and he was selling on a Sunday right outside of a church. So I was like, okay, we better get some vegetables. I'm still crying. I'm out of my mind. I'm having a nervous breakdown. Literally, I'm not being hyperbolic. I was in a full panic cycle. And so I stopped and I still remember exactly what I bought. I bought a quarter of a pumpkin because it's a thing you can do in Europe. You know, she's nodding. But pumpkin, 2 potatoes, like 3 carrots, some like collard greens, collard greens. I bought some collard greens to put in the soup. I bought an onion, a leek, and I opened my little change purse, which didn't have my 20 in it because it was in my pocket and I looked down and then I just started crying harder. And my husband's like, oh God, she's jet lagged and crying. It's going to be fine. But I wasn't fine. And there was a toddler and he was terrible. He was lovely and charming and quite cute to look at, but like the devil. And so everything was bad. And there's like a church and like he's chewing on bark and I'm crying. And I said, Alfredo, I'm going to need you to go to ask your mom for some money to buy these vegetables because I only have 7 euros in coins that I had brought from like my last trip to Europe in a coin purse. And I was like, I only have 7 euros and there's just no way I'm going to be like hysterical. And he was like, it's going to be okay. Just wait. And I mean, like, this is like huge bag of vegetables. And the guy went 1 euro and 80 cents. And then I cried more because I knew I was going to be okay because I could afford those vegetables and I knew I could like beg some eggs off my mother-in-law to make an omelet. And then everything was going to close because it was Sunday. It was going to close. Everything was going to lock down. And so I was going to be fine. And then I kept thinking like, you're going to be okay. You can do this. If you can live in America and do everything that you've done for 30 years on an incredibly tight income, you can do it here if like an entire 2 days worth of vegetables that will feed you is 1 euro and 80 cents. It's not that much. It's not that inexpensive anymore. Oh my God, inflation. But it was really, really important. It was a really important lesson. And I mean, it was just that farmer checked on me for years, like checked on me. Like he would, anytime I walked by, how are you? Are you okay? Because he saw me on my worst day. And I was like, I'm doing great. And then every day I had more every time I saw him, I had more Portuguese. And every time I could talk to him more, every time I could communicate more, and every time he became more a part of my community. So that's why community is really important to me. Because when you immigrate, people always think about like, oh, you're going to miss your friends and family. And that's true. Like your kids are going to grow up and you still think of them as when they were 2, but they're like 16. And you're like, how? I'm the same. But I think one of the most important things that you lose when you immigrate to another country is community. And clay community doesn't exist in Portugal like it exists in the your eyebrows. Oh my God. She's pinching her face together. So she's like,
I was like, wait, what?
Clay community. So Rebecca, let's say you and I have hung out this much. Okay. Like just like a blip of time. But there's like, you've got a glaze and I really like it. I know I could be like, what glaze is that? And you will tell me. You will not only tell me, but if it's yours, you could be like, here. Because you know that I can make something with it, but it's not what you make. Even if I try to make the same thing you make, It's not yours. That we're really open and not proprietary about anything in the clay community. I bought John Britt's book when it came out, but I basically had John Britt's book because he was writing it when I was at Penland. And so, like, he was just like throwing the dollars. Like, it was perfect. And anybody had ever, oh, do you like that? Here's the recipe. Oh, it took me 5 years to develop that glaze here. Or let me tell you my wadding recipe. Or, you know why I like this clay? I add a little extra this, or I take it out of the bag, I put it in my pug with a little extra. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, it's just amazing the conversations you can have, especially in like regional clay areas. You just go to the barber shop and you're like, what kind of cup is that? Oh, it's from the woodchuck kilns. It's wood fired over there, you know. I go help out my buddy because, you know, it takes a 6-day fire. And so I do a couple shifts. You know, you're like, okay, this is the greatest day of my entire life. I am this nerd. You're like looking for the George Orr pottery at the swap meet, just in case. Nope, not here. It's completely insular. It's changing. I'm not trying to be, but it's a radical idea that you would share, that you would have when I opened my community pottery studio, I have met 2 other ones in the entire country. It's not outside, and there's no clay schools. All of it's changing now. I don't want to say like, back in my day, but back in my day, it was really hard to be like, I do this. Like, it took me, I started when I moved to Portugal in 2005. I moved part-time. I moved full-time in 2010. And then I moved to the north of Portugal because my husband got a big old fancy science grant because he's all fancy and looks like a movie star. You're welcome. You can Google him. Anyway. So we moved to
George Clooney? No.
Clooney bought comporta. Like, George Clooney now lives here, and he's from my area of Kentucky, and I have things to say to him about this one beach, and I'm wondering if I can still go to it. It's okay. George, call me. We can talk about your mom and him. Okay? God bless Rosemary. And your dad. He and my mama had coffee all the time in her diner. Let's move on. So.
I did not expect that to take that turn.
I'm here for you. You brought it up. Don't ask, Rebecca.
So it was the first attractive man that came to mind.
When I moved to Portugal, I was around this pottery region called Aceitão. And I was just trying to find people where I could work and where I could work in pottery. And I just kept going up to them and I couldn't find anyone. They're there. I know where they are now, but it was so... can't find you. Where are you? Who does this? Who did this? Who did that? But it was very like, we don't know you, but not in an insulting. You're a little loud. You talk a lot. Your accent's funny, but not in an insulting way. In a, I don't know you. I don't have to. Community is very different anywhere you live. Community is different in state by state. Community in Canada is different. Community in Mexico is different. Community in Antarctica is community or death. So do you know what I mean? There are different levels of community. And I'm incredibly passionate about community. I find community to be an artful act because it is artfully done or poorly done. Even if it's your community parish, like I think church is a little bit different, but like your patch of earth, like your community center where you can do macrame and neighborhood association kind of thing.
Your school community, your neighborhood. I was just talking to somebody the other day about how hard community actually is to build. Because I think, here's my real hot take for 2024. I'm calling it right now. It's early February at the time we record this, but I'm calling this as a 2024 trend because that's what people think of me for, trends, yes. But you know how the last few years, authenticity has been like the buzzword that started good, then got overused and kind of died and no longer means anything?
Mm-hmm.
I see that happening now with the word community, and it breaks my heart because I see people using it online for selling online courses or online teaching in some way or whatever it is. And I don't think it's all malicious. I think people, I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt that they mean it a lot. But I think from my perspective, it takes so much intentionality and effort to really, truly create a safe space to bring people together, to not only have it be deep enough that the people already in it feel safe with each other, which, as you're describing, can become really insular if you're not careful, to then also have it be open at the same time to bring new people into, doesn't happen on accident. That takes a lot of fucking work.
Oh my gosh. You are not wrong. Because I had the academic side, I had the Penland side, and I had the community pottery studio side from the beginning, I was very quickly able to go, hold on a minute. If I have a certain amount of wheels and I can give a certain amount of classes and I can have a certain amount of people paying for a certain amount of privilege to come in and use my equipment, and then I will make sure that their shit doesn't blow up all the time. I will let your shit blow up some of the time if you don't listen, as a lesson of tough love and responsibility. It ain't mine.
And on a shelf by itself.
Exactly. Like, this is a bomb. It's going by. I digress. But because I was exposed really young to community pottery studios, and because I was exposed really young to residency programs where we got to pitch in because, paying customers are coming, so you better scrub that toilet. We got to get this place spick and span. It's got to shine like the top of the Chrysler building. Like, it was literally like we stayed in dormitories like Annie. It was at the top of the Lily Loom house. Like, let's do it. It was amazing. It was amazing because we would get it all organized. It was organized by artists at Artist Fund. Oh my God, the things you can do with a little bit of infrastructure and a couple people going, no, you got to do it. It sucks, but we all got to do it. And if we all do it, then we can all have something. Which I think is why I was able to leave. I mean, I left Portugal. I left for Portugal before, like right in the beginning of Obama. Like, he had just gotten elected. Everyone's like, yes, we can. I was like, I also can and will. See you soon. I'm going to go here because there's a bunch of these social structures built into life here in Portugal. I'm not going to call it social. I'm not going to use any of these buzzwords because it's about solidarity. It's about grace and humanity. We all pay, we can all have it. It's a fundamental right because we're all contributing. If you cannot contribute, well, that's 101 life. Not everybody can. That doesn't mean we let them die. That doesn't mean we don't give them access. No, we make a surplus. It's like the Shakers in the United States. When a Shaker plants a garden, you plant it for 3 people. You plant it for the crows, the community, and the thieves. But you don't think like, oh, fuck the thieves. You just make a provision. They're coming. The crows are coming. People are going to pick because they're hungry or they want, or greed, that evil green demon greed comes in. They want what you have and you, do you know what I'm saying? And then you plant for you. And that's how you get through. And that's how we've always done it. Our brains are this big because of community. Because we got to sit down. Because we didn't have to fight constantly for every resource. We got to sit down, we got to write stories, we got to sing songs, we got to tell stories, we got to dance. I'm a terrible dancer, but I know how important it is for your brain. Like, thank you, because I'm married a scientist who looks like a movie star. Let's keep going. For this, I might get a date out of this, Rebecca. So, community in a country is particular, and community in a state is particular, and community in a city is particular, and a neighborhood is particular. And I argue that it's not the same as a school, and it's not the same as a religion, and it's definitely not family. So I don't know of a lot of communities. They exist. I can list them. We ain't got time. I put community pottery huge on everything, and I tell people it's a community, and I present it as a community. In Portugal, other facilities call themselves co-working. The term in Portugal for I'm going to rent studio time and use the equipment is co-working. That ain't what I do. I know the name of your dog. I know the name of your mom's dog and that it just had surgery. I know that you are allergic to pistachios. I also know that you're lazy about cleaning your splash pan. And I let you be lazy about cleaning your splash pan because on Tuesdays you bring brownies. It's not fair for everybody that you're lazy about cleaning your splash pan, but I pull that extra weight because community doesn't mean friends. In fact, you shouldn't be friends with the majority of your community. That's not a community, that's a friend group. Community is we're nothing alike, but we have this like-minded idea. Together we will cooperate, do, crowd funding, crowd ideas, make decisions. But in my community pottery studio, it's my studio where I work. And then I invite my community in. So I have a lot of rules and a lot of boundaries because I've been doing this for so long. I know how it works and I know how it won't work. And it won't work if you think that you just can't clean your splash pan. So some days I'm like, don't you dare walk near that door. My community pottery studio is clay. First, I'd love to have more programs. I am one human. It's very hard to employ people. You have to meet a minimum standard of living. That's expensive, as it should be. So it's me. I'm a bit of a one-woman show. So that means I can't do as much as I would like because I can only work harder. But that's it. That's a complete sentence. I can only work harder. It's not going to get me anywhere. So I have to work smarter. I have to, have so many boundaries. People would say rules, people would say regulations, but no, it's about, okay, here are the rules, here are the parameters, you fit within this. You have to take a pottery class with me. I don't care if you've done clay in the past. I don't care. I need 4 weeks. I do not give a class less than 4 weeks. I need to vet you. You are vetted. And then you may be invited. It's an invitation only because I cannot just ruin the ambience of the community. So the number one compliment that always makes me feel old is, this is the vibe. Yay. I'm the vibe.
Oh, the vibe.
The vibe. That's
I was expecting another adjective.
No, that's it. They like, oh my God. In Portuguese, they're like, ai, aqui é só the vibe. I'm like, I'm so old. I can't. And then, but I always do this because it's a compliment and I know how to take one. I went to therapy to learn how to take a compliment. And so I got my money's worth. And I'm like, obrigado. I'm the vibe. The vibe costs money. This is the money of the vibe. The vibe costs time. This is the time of the vibe. No, you can't have less time. Mm-mm. No, I don't make an accommodation for you because my vibe is making pottery. And so I have created a business, which is my job. So I have a job. I have a day job. It is running a community pottery studio. It's a lot of physics, chemistry, and cleaning. That's all I do. Physics, chemistry, and cleaning. That's what I do for a living. Thank you. And I wear a mask. Big one when I do it. So I'm uncomfortable and sweating because I'm old. But it's the vibe. And I love that. In addition, we go to art openings. We go to clay events. We go, if I can get a clay person to come and talk, I get them to talk. I have big, lofty plans. I do have big, lofty goals for my life. I have a business plan. My God, Rebecca,
overrated.
I'm a little bit flirting with you about business acumen, but it's okay. Overrated. How dare you? I have a 5-year goal. I have deliverables, spreadsheets. Even though I'm dyslexic, I can do a spreadsheet. I cry a little bit.
You can break things up. There's columns. You can break up the information.
Columns, formula. But I opened in 2020. I don't know if you guys heard of this thing called the pandemic. Before that, I was working in museums. So I was doing ethnographic pottery. I live in a city called Guimarães. And how you say that is give me more ice very fast. Guimarães. So it's give me more ice. Give me more ice. Guimarães. Okay, it's hard. There's like a double dip. I don't know. I'm not a linguist. It's not an easy one. It is the oldest city in the longest existing border in Europe. It's where the country of Portugal decided to be not citadels with independent kings, a united nation with a lot of dukes, and this one guy, Dom Afonso Henrique. And it all happened in my town. There's a beautiful castle. Jesus. It's never uncharming, my city. I'm beyond lucky to live here. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a UN, United Nations treaty that says, I'm not going to blow this up if you don't blow this up, okay? And it comes with a lot of responsibility. Like, you have to, know what you're doing and be respectful and be a part of the stewardship of an immaterial or existing cultural treasure. And that's what my pottery studio is. I'm just a girl from the Midwest of America. Yeah.
I've got questions. Ooh, we are only just getting started. And sure, there has been plenty of joking around in my conversation with Joy, but I hope as you've been listening and your own studio space, perhaps, you've also picked up on the absolute gems Joy has shared about making, in general and in another country. I know a lot of us struggle with thinking about where art sits in a world with so much chaos, to put it mildly, right now. And Joy's reflection on the fact that in many ways, the ways in which we still make pots hasn't changed from the beginning of time, but at least maybe for sure the beginning of agriculture and farming as we know it. The idea of craft as legacy. I don't really have a well-formed thought to say here, but just that statement hit home for me and made me pause amidst an otherwise very animated and hilarious conversation. And I hope it helps you too. And in the true spirit of this conversation, to take a complete and total right turn from the philosophical and the beautiful and jump over to the pragmatic, I have a time-sensitive thing I want to remind you about. If you're on our email list, then you already found this out yesterday, but just in case you missed it, in 10 very short days, I am once again hosting our free live webinar called The 4 Most Common Instagram Photography Mistakes and How to Avoid Them. Honestly, this is probably the most popular piece of free photographic education I put out onto the internet, specifically for makers. And it's happening on June 11th and 12th. You can find out more about it, see the times that each of these webinars will be at in order to Google your conversion for your own time zone, because each webinar on June 11th and June 12th are at different times so that I could try and cover as many time zones as humanly possible for one human. Anyway, you can get all of that at makersplaybook.com/Instagram-photography. And I know what you're wondering. Yes, there will be a recording if you can't join live. But if you can join live, I'm going to be sticking around for as long as I possibly can at the end to answer as many questions live as I can. So trying to carve out a little bit of time to join live is pretty awesome. You can save your seat by visiting makersplaybook.com/Instagram-photography. Once again, this episode is made possible in part thanks to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great source for students and teachers. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com. This episode is also sponsored by the Archie Bray Clay business, home of Bray Patch, a ceramic patching material that is best used for filling cracks and bonding breaks. Bray Patch can be applied to either green or bisqueware and fired up to cone 10. It fires paper white but can be tinted using your chosen clay body and be covered by opaque glaze or slip. Order anytime online at archiebrayclay.com. Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Kirsty Kotzfan, with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality. Because together, we've got this.
This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.